Good morning. Let's go ahead and get our pages set up. Okay, so today our learning target is I can find the circumference of a circle given the radius or the diameter. Okay. All right, so before we do anything else, let's go ahead and talk about the parts of a circle. I know you guys are really familiar with the circumference and the diameter at this point, but I also just want to make sure you have that radius too. Now I have a fabulous circle toy that I always use, not toy, tool that I always use when I'm teaching this lesson, and I left it sitting in my classroom, and I am at home recording this, so my circles are not going to be beautiful. My apologies. Okay, we already talked about how the circumference is the distance around that circle. And we use the letter C in our equations for a circle. And then the distance across the circle from one edge to the other through the middle is your diameter. And we use a letter D for diameter when we're writing the equations for a circle. And then the last thing that we haven't really talked about is the radius. The radius is just half the diameter. It connects the middle of the circle to the edge of the circle. So it's basically halfway across instead of the whole way. One of my students showed me a funny Star Wars meme for radius and diameter, so I did post that in Otis too so that you could see it and laugh, hopefully. So right here is the radius, and we use an R to stand for radius, okay? So you guys already kind of created the formula for the equation of a circle. And all we did, and you had your own pi that you had derived yourself, but we had pi. We multiplied it times the diameter, and we got the circumference, okay? So that's one of our equations. So if you're given the diameter, great, okay? Now if you're given the radius, all we need to do is find the diameter and then multiply it by pi. Since the radius is only halfway across, we have to multiply it by 2 to get the diameter, and then we can multiply that by pi. So we end up with this equation, 2 pi r equals circumference. So we've basically doubled the radius before, and then we've multiplied it times pi, okay? So these are the equations we're going to use for a circle to find the circumference. Today we're focusing on circumference. Tomorrow we're going to focus on, sorry, not tomorrow. We won't be here tomorrow. Well, I will be. You will not be. But on Monday we will focus on the area of a circle. All right, so let's go ahead and do some examples. Okay, so let's do a radius of 4 inches. We're going to assume on these examples we are finding the circumference. So I'm not going to put directions or anything with those. Okay, so what we have then is we have the radius, so I need to use 2 pi times the radius, and that's going to give us the circumference. Now don't laugh at me, the only device I have that I'm not using right now is an iPad. So I'm going to use the calculator on my iPad to do my calculations. Okay, now a couple things here. If you have a calculator with a pi button, you're going to get a more exact answer than those that don't. If you do not have the pi button, use 3.14 for pi, okay? If you do have a pi button, I want you to round it to the nearest hundredth, okay? I'm going to pretend like I do not have a pi button. So I'm going to do 2 times 3.14 times that radius, which was 4 inches, and I get 25 12/100ths. So the circumference is approximately 25 12/100ths. Now I will always use approximation symbols here for circumference because we always have to round it. It's never going to be exact because pi is an infinite number, at least, you know, from what we can tell from all the evidence collected. It never ends, okay? All right, let me do one with diameter and then I'll have you guys practice it a little bit. I'm going to say that this is 2.5 meters. All right, this one is the diameter because it goes all the way across. So we're going to do like what we did for our Roman Colosseum yesterday. We're going to do pi times 2.5 is going to give us our circumference. Okay, again, I've got my big old iPad here. How do I clear this thing? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to use the approximation for pi, 3.14 times the 2.5 meters. And I get that the circumference is going to be 7.85 meters. All right, there you have it. You guys are probably like, okay, Miss Mac, we get it. Let's move on with our lives. Okay, let me give you a couple practice problems. Then we're going to use the equation the opposite way real quick, and then we'll call it a day, okay? So let's say that you're given a radius of 5.5 millimeters. Find the circumference. And number 2, let's say that you're given a diameter of 3 feet, okay? So find the circumference of both of those circles. Go ahead and pause your video. Do that math, please. All right, so let's make sure we're good. So the first one we had a radius, so it's 2 times 3.14 times 5.5. If you are using the pi button, your answers might be slightly different than mine. That is really okay. That's going to happen. That's why we always say that the circumference is approximately 34 54/100ths millimeters. Okay. Now let's use the diameter. What was that, 3? Okay, so it's going to be 3.14 times 3. So the circumference is approximately 9 42/100ths feet. Okay. All right, so now let's go the inverse way. let's say what happens when we are given the circumference and we want to find the diameter and the radius. Okay, now my paper, for whatever reason, the lines are so big, so I'm already out of room, so I'm going to flip over, but you do not need to flip over if you still have a significant amount of space there on your page. Okay, so let's say that we have a circle, and for this circle, we're given that the circumference is 27 inches, and we want to find the diameter and the radius. All right, so let's start with the diameter. Since we're looking for the diameter, let's use this one, pi times diameter, and we know that the circumference is 27. So basically, instead of filling in the diameter, we don't know the diameter, we're filling in the circumference, and we're going to solve for the diameter. So this is going to be a little bit of a review of solving equations. Now, you can either divide both sides by pi first, or if you want to put the approximation for pi, 3.14 times d in there, and then divide both sides by 3.14, you can. So basically what we're going to do is we're using inverse operations to solve this. So if I divide this side by pi, I'm really hoping you remember this from 6th grade. Okay, then we have the diameter is approximately equal to 27 divided by pi. I guess it's not approximate yet until we divide by pi, but here, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, 27 divided by 3.14. So I'm finding that the diameter is approximately 8, and I'm going to round to 60. Okay, and that's going to be inches. Okay, so now we have our approximation for the diameter. Now we also want to find the radius. Okay, so now I'm going to use this equation. 2 pi r is equal to circumference. All right, so I can divide both sides by 2 pi here. I hope I'm not blowing your mind too much. I know we haven't gotten to equations yet, but you should have learned something close to this in 6th grade. Oh, I forgot to write in. We know this is 27. Let's go ahead and put 27 in there for circumference. Actually, this is an erasable pen. I'm going to erase. Okay, so you have 27 divided by 2 pi, and that's going to give us our radius, okay? So let me get this out. Okay, we had 27 divided by 3.14, then divide that by 2. And we find that the radius is approximately, I'm going to round this to 4.30. You might already be thinking, Miss Mack, there was an easier way. And I would say, you are right. All you have to do is divide the diameter by 2, right? And we know that we've done our math correct because that's exactly half of that one. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to give you a couple practice problems for this to make sure you're good, okay? Okay, your circumference is equal to 10 meters. Find the diameter and the radius. This time your circumference is equal to 95 centimeters. So find the diameter and the radius. Go ahead and pause it and do that work real quick. All right. Okay, so for your diameter, all you have to do is divide the circumference by pi. So I'm going to do 10 divided by 3.14. And I'll round that to 3.18. So the diameter is approximately 3.18 meters. And either you can divide that by 2 or you can do the math here. If we take the circumference, divide it by pi, and then divide it by 2. Okay, I would round that to 1.59. meters. Again, half. And this is just an approximation. Okay. All right, so that's the first one. Let's take a look at that second one. 95. All we need to do is divide by pi. Okay, so the diameter, and I'll round this, it's going to be approximately 30 and 25 hundredths. And that's centimeters. And then, because I like to do math, we're going to do the radius with that just by dividing by pi first, and then dividing by 2. So I would say that's 15 and 13 hundredths. Approximately 15 and 13 hundredths millimeters, or centimeters, excuse me. All right. Hopefully you are good to go. All right, your homework is not going to take you very long. Make sure that you do that. You fill in your answer checker, rounding to the nearest hundredth. And then if you have extra time, you can always work on your I Ready My Path. But let's be calm for the sub today. So just stay in your seats, work on I Ready My Path, and make things super easy. All right, you guys have a great day. I will see you after the long weekend.